Hey nerds, Farmer Jesse here. Welcome to Growers Daily, your daily dose of ecological farming insight. It is Thursday, February 19th, 2026, and today we will put the N in no-till. See what I did there? N, nitrogen. You get it. Anyway, we will also be keeping Basil looking fresh and talking about what to look for in a software. So let's do it. All right, happy Thursday, everyone. I am starting today's show with a little bit of a sad note. Yesterday, we found out that Dr. Elaine Ingham of the Soil Food Web fame had passed away. And if you don't know who that is, please take a little time today to look her up and watch one of her talks or listen to an interview with her. I promise you, you will love it and you will gain a ton of information about how soil works from anything you watch of hers. She is an absolute legend in the soil nerd world. I've spent hours and hours and hours listening to her talks on soil health and microbial interactions on YouTube and in various podcasts. I would say I don't think there has ever been a person more talented at communicating the complex, interactions of soil microbiology to the average person than Dr. Ingham. She made it fun. She made it digestible. She made it memorable. Her love of very tiny things left a huge mark on our community and our world. Her work with microscopy, her work with compost, her work, telling us about how it all works. Our hearts go out to her family and friends who I hope understand and appreciate just how much she meant to all of us. What a legend, and one we will all not soon forget. Rest in peace, live in soil. Thank you, Doc. Okay, so, there's obviously no easy way to transition out of that, but I hope your weeks have gone well so far. It's muddy here from all the ice and, rain and all the things, but at least the temperatures are optimistic, if that's a word for describing a temperature. Things are promising, starting to get a little bit more springy around here. Got a little cold coming up this weekend, but then it seems right back to the warmth, and I'm here for it. I'm ready to go, ready to start to rock and roll on this whole growing season thing, even though the next month is very much a hurry up and wait month. Anyway, not much to report here on the farm unless you want me to talk about the window I fixed yesterday, because I will. I'm quite proud of myself, but as is our Thursday thing instead, let's catch up on a few Patreon questions to see what you all have questions about, and of course to make sure we stay up to date over there on those queries. That said, Patreon members, as questions arise for you, don't hesitate to put them in the show thread over there. Even if you think I may have already covered it, go for it. I can usually come up with a new way to answer the question because, heck, market gardening and growing food is complicated, and there is always more to say about every subject. Anyway, our first Patreon question of the day comes to us from Tom Welsh, who writes, quote, "I'm gradually converting to no-till methods. I assume that nitrogen is supplied to the plants through the decomposing organic matter. Since nitrogen leaches rapidly from the soil, do you see deficiencies in the plants during prolonged rainy periods? If so, how do you compensate?" End quote. Okay, so great question here. And this will depend on a number of factors, not the least of which is what type of no-till system we're talking about. Depending on the quality of the compost, deep compost mulching systems, for instance, are going to supply both readily available nitrogen, but also stable nitrogen that will, be slowly unlocked over time by the microbes. So maybe you lose some nitrogen in the immediate, and certainly heavy compost applications can be dangerous in terms of pollution in wet regions, especially near waterways, so be careful there. But you also have some stable nitrogen that microbes can slowly unlock as the season goes on. If you are using a shallow tillage or low tillage system where you are applying compost/amendments by the crop, then the loss will primarily be dependent on the stage of decomposition, on the living plant roots, and when it was applied. Organic matter will be another big factor as well that will determine, the nutrient storage and nitrogen availability over time, as well as what is retained in the heavy rain events. I personally love and have talked about on the show the addition of extra carbon, like in a lasagna style system, where the carbon can help retain some of the more mobile nutrients such as nitrogen, especially in rainy environments. I also think it's important just to have living plant roots all the time, so nitrogen is not being lost as readily. It's tied up in the mulch, in the plants, etc. So if you are mulching with the carbonaceous mulches, that will also help. That said, each crop and context will be different. Fast draining soils with low organic matter and CEC, cation exchange capacity, will just more readily leach nutrients. Heavier soils may not leach them quite as quickly, but may run into denitrification and lose nitrogen to the atmosphere. So to further answer the question, we have run into nitrogen deficiencies on occasion. but not as much as when we were farming with more of a tillage system. And in general, in the no-till system, it has occurred almost exclusively in places where I let up on the compost additions to just see how far I could push it, like after the initial compost addition to set up a bed or whatever. So in other words, to see how far I could make a deep compost layer last and still, I don't know, feed the soil. And 2 years in that way is about the most I recommend without adding more compost. And frankly, even that is a little bit pushing it. At least some alfalfa meal should be added probably in the second year. But anyway, as long as you are not over applying highly concentrated nitrogens like chicken manure, and you are using practices that encourage soil organic matter and also using some carbonaceous materials around, you should not have significant issues with nitrogen loss and deficiencies. But again, every situation will be different, and you may have to work with an agronomist if deficiencies persist. Anyway, let us know your all's thoughts or experiences, listeners and viewers. Otherwise, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll tackle the question of keeping basil banging. Basil banging back. Basil banging right back. I get too much freedom with this stuff. Be right back.
Hey, Brian here from the Snowflake Farm Propagation Station. We've got some different brassicas started, getting ready to start a whole bunch more stuff, along with some lavender, a few house plants, some fig cuttings, and some lavender cuttings. Yeah.
Today's episode is brought to you by Certified Naturally Grown. Certified Naturally Grown is the grassroots certification built by farmers for farmers. C&G gives local growers like you recognition for the commitment of producing food without synthetic chemicals by assuring customers that your practices are verified. C&G's peer review inspection model keeps the cost of certification low while creating opportunities for knowledge sharing amongst a strong, supportive network of like-minded farmers. Apply today to be certified before the season ramps up. Applications processed within 7 days. Learn more at naturallygrown.org. All right, back to the show. If you, the listener or viewer, are enjoying this podcast, getting even a small amount of value from it, consider supporting our work over at patreon.com/no-till-growers. Does this work bring you $2 worth of value per month? 5, 10 maybe? You can help support it and keep it free and open to anyone and everyone over there at patreon.com/no-till-growers. Now, I do try to get to questions from everywhere that questions come in, but I will always get to your Patreon questions. Now, today's Patreon question comes to us from Patreon member Lee Kossib, who writes, quote, "Happy New Year, Jesse. A question: how do you harvest, pack, and transport basil for market or wholesale customers and keep it fresh and green? Thanks for another year of being awesome in the books," end quote. And great to hear from Lee. I feel like we haven't had a Lee question in a while, so that's fun. Thank you, Lee. All right, so I love this question because I love basil. We grow a fair amount of basil on our farm every season, and I have new thoughts every season on how to deal with the harvesting and packing element, because anyone who has dealt with basil in a humid environment knows that it is a grumpy crop post-harvest. First, when you harvest basil does matter quite a bit. Specifically, we have learned that if you harvest the basil with any amount of moisture at all still on the leaves, you pretty much toast. Moisture on the leaves of basil in storage is the death nail, and it will turn almost anything it touches into black mush. And the customers will not be super excited about the black basil mush. It's not very super attractive. It's like the worst pesto imaginable. So we tend to harvest our basil last on the list, well after it is dried, usually late in the morning or early in the afternoon. We also grow all of our basil in the tunnel now, where it will not quite pick up as much dew, and thus it will dry faster, keeping the basil nice and thinned by harvesting preferably. Will keep the airflow as well nice so that it doesn't, hold that moisture quite as well between the leaves. For harvest, we typically use a pair of shears and are super gentle when we cut the stems to avoid crushing and damaging the leaves. We usually harvest into a tote or a bulb crate, because if I feel even the smallest amount of moisture on the leaves, I will place that tote in front of a fan and toss the basil, again, super gently, to ensure I get all of that moisture off. I do not want to send any of that moisture to the customer, not just for the mush sake, but also food safety sake. Then for packing, we usually go with large sealed bags, nothing fancy there. It just depends on the order, what size of bag we'll use, though. We try to not stuff them, like stuff the basil too much into the bag. Again, we're trying to avoid damaging the leaves. Then for storing it, basil hates the cold, just hates it. Like anything below hoodie weather may as well be the ice age to basil, and it gives up any will to live in the high 30s. That even carries into the post-harvest life, where ideally you keep basil closer to 50 degrees than 37 degrees, which is what the average walk-in temperature is, that colder, like closer to 37, 35 degree range. This is not easy to do, to find a 50 degree space. What we've had decent success with lately is placing a small cooler in the walk-in like overnight, and then taking it out and keeping basil bags in there just outside, so it's cool but it's not cold, until the delivery, or we'll just keep it on the counter if that's cool enough. We do that same thing for the smaller bags as well that we use for market. Like if we're going to farmer's market and we have it in smaller bags, we'll keep those in that cooler that's outside of the cooler. Doesn't have any ice in it. You can keep ice in it as long as the basil doesn't touch that, but you just got to keep it in that like 55 degree range, or that's like 12.5 Celsius. Same as like tomatoes. I've thought about building a second walk-in, in fact, that just has a, like a regular AC unit in it without the CoolBot for those sorts of crops that don't like it too cold. I probably will never do that, but I've thought about it. I've thought a lot about it. Anyway, hopefully there was something helpful in there, and I would love to hear what you all do for commercial basil production and selling. I know a lot of people just harvest it and put it in jars on the counter, which is great for home use, but what is your sale approach if you're going to do it? Or like, what is it if you were going to pack it for a friend? Like, what works for you? Let us know. Otherwise, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, let's not be a little worse for the software. Nailed it. Be right back. Today's episode is brought to you by Tend. Farming is hard, running it shouldn't be. Meet Tend, the purpose-built platform built by farmers for farmers. Plan your season, map your farm, and track every task from seed to sale. No more spreadsheets, no more guesswork, just smart, seamless workflows. Tend adapts to your farm, 1 acre or 100. Real-time inventory, sales, labor, tracking, traceability, and analytics all in one place. You grow food, flowers, fruit, and more. Tend helps you to grow smarter. Start free today at tend.com. That's TEND.com. All right, back to the show. All right, our third and final question du jour comes to us from Patreon member James Webb, who asks, quote, "My question, as a first market farm, is there a short list of software to have ready? All help appreciated. I've done hobby farming, but never to this scale," end quote. All right. This is a really good question. So I don't know that there is technically a short list of specific software to support. I mean, obviously, I think you should support all the software people who support us, but I'm clearly a little biased there. Let's simplify it, and then you can decide which of the programs make the most sense for like whatever it is you hope to accomplish, because you may find at your scale or for your goals, a few spreadsheets may be enough, or conversely, that you want all the softwares, or that you want to start with something like a spreadsheet and move into a software. Hard to say. For me, there really are three main things that you need software for, because it's data you need to collect or stuff you need to do, like take sales. I would start with a way to manage and track expenses plus income. So to track profit and loss, you need to know what you are spending and what you are earning and on what. Again, this could be a software program, or it could be, just something simple like a spreadsheet that has the cost and expenses for each crop that you can go through at the end of the season and kind of figure out what made you money and what didn't. You will also need a way to track sales. Again, this could be a spreadsheet, but there's also, there are also programs that will help you not only track those sales, but offer like a point of sale system, often somewhat confusingly referred to as a POS system, which is just like the buttons you will press to ring up a customer. Essentially, that's your POS. You will need a POS system. This is like, especially if you're doing a farmer's market or something, you're going to need even just like Square as your POS. You're going to need something to be able to plug into, take a credit card or whatever, so that you can keep track of those expenses and also just have a place to accept the customer's money. And just so it's clear, like when you go to a concession stand at your local soccer rec league to support the cause, the buttons the volunteer presses on the screen is the POS system, and it gives them a bunch of options to choose from and then tracks how much of what was sold. And like any retail establishment uses that, or even restaurants use the POS system. Fancier systems can do more and give you more of an itemized breakdown at the end of the day, or there are very simple versions where you simply type in the price and then it allows you to take the money or, card or check or whatever. Then the last software or spreadsheet you need is a way to track production. I used X amendment. I planted X at this time. I harvested X at this time, and I sold this much. How you track these things is a little bit up to the grower and can be linked to the profit and loss sheet as well. The nice thing about the professional softwares is that they are designed and tested already, and many integrate some or all of these types of software. So like a POS with a way to track expenses and keep production records all in one place, maybe with some crop planning, seed ordering, etc. thrown in there as well. The other cool thing is that most programs will also let you take it for a test drive, look around, and see if you like it. Now, if you're certified organic, I did see that Cog Pro, which is the one that we used for years, is ending. So you will need to find, your own software for that to track a lot of the stuff anyways, because you do have to track these things for certifying, seeds, amendments, sales, usage, packaging, like all that stuff. So I say start by making a list of what you need and want to track, and then talk to a few of the software folks. No harm in that. You may find at first that you'd rather start with spreadsheets and then build from there, or you may find it's easier to just like pay someone to have, that work already done for you, who's already consulted with farmers and created a general program that any market gardener can use based around, market gardening. Anyway, I hope that helps. Let us know, growers, what you all would add or subtract there, or what systems you like or use. Otherwise, we are outie Thurs 1000. That's terrible, which is why I am keeping it. Don't forget, No Till Growers is a nonprofit 501c3, so donations are tax deductible and greatly appreciated. Please make sure to like and subscribe and or follow wherever you're getting this podcast. That's an easy way to help us out as well. Enormous thank you to all of our show sponsors. And if you'd ever like to sponsor the show, you can reach out to Farmer Michelle at notillgrowers.com. Say, hey, Farmer Michelle, I really love that you all keep this stuff free and open to anyone and everyone. I'd like to support that and put my name up there so people can see that I support it. I support you supporting us. So you can write that to Farmer Michelle at notillgrowers.com. Huge shouts to Willie Breeding for the theme music, Mike Hilbert for the production help and editing, and my wife Hannah for absolutely everything in the world. Also, shouts to Epidemic Sound for the background music that you can hear. Pretty sure I just said the word music, which I don't think is a word. Could be. Pick up a hat or a copy of my book, The Living Soil Handbook, at notillgrowers.com to support our work. Big thank you to everyone over at patreon.com/notillgrowers, where at a certain level, or if you just bump up from one level to another, or you sign up in the month of February, you get a shout on the show. So big shout outs today to Brandy Duvall. That's fun to say. Shouts, Brandy. Thank you for joining up. And thank you for keeping our story going this week. It's on quite the roll. And as you will remember, from this week's story, our guitarist, James, you could maybe even call him a guitar hero, is standing in front of a bunch of dudes who are all gathered around some instruments, wearing some fancy headgear in a fancy building. And anyway, they basically just instruct James to get his guitar set up and come join them in the studio. James is like kind of confused. He's like, this doesn't look like a tour. This doesn't look like, like a practice space. Like, what are we doing? Like, is this some sort of audition or something? He asks them, and they say no. They've got to get the music first. And they say it will make sense once he puts the headset on. So, don't sweat it. And so James cautiously sets his guitar up, plugs it into the amp, tunes it, gets the headset on, and then says, now what? And the producer pops into his ear, you can hear him, and says, just play the first chord progression that pops into your head. And James, he starts to play, starts at C. I like C. And then he sees it. But that is for tomorrow on Those About to Rock, We Are Watching. Ooh, that's spooky. Cool. Anyway, thanks for watching and or listening. We will see you tomorrow.